Hello guys and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to talk about 1020 system 19 channel electrode positioning. We are going to learn how to find the position and how to put the electrodes in each position. 1020 system is an international positioning system that works pretty well in many fields including neurofeedback. And this system is based on the relationship and the distance between the electrodes on the scalp, and the number of 10 and 20 are representative of the distance between these measurements in different directions. Okay, so to start we need to learn some basics about some basic points to find the positions of the electrodes on the head. The first position is nasien. Nasien is a point that connects the forehead to the nose. It's kind of in between the two eyes, right? And it's the part that the shape of the head goes a bit inward, and that point is nasien. Then we have inian. Inian point is the back of the head, and it's somewhere around here when the shape of the head goes inward and connects to the neck. Here most of the people have a bump, have a part that goes inside a bit, and when you touch with the finger you find it. Some people don't have this inward part, so the head doesn't have this shape. When you touch, you might not find it, but by practice you will find it without even having that shape. The next point is Preauricular point. It's here where the ear, that we have a bumpy here in the ear also. We can use that as a reference, or you can just simply use this part, like in front of the ear on top is this point that helps us to understand where is the position of the middle of the head. So if you put your finger here and the other finger on the other side and try to catch the middle, this point is really helpful. Okay. Nasien and inian points also help us to understand the middle of the head, comparing from checking from here to here. So this is 50% of the way to get to inian part, right? Watching from up, we have this shape that you see a lot in the brain maps. This is the nose and the ears, right? So if you put these points, you can see that the nasien is right front of the head, and inian point is the back, and then we have left and right preauricular points. Now let's look at the points in a different way to have a better notion of the important parts of the head. I found this website that is really cool actually. It has a lot of 3D images. I chose this head because although he is a really angry man, but it has the points pretty well, so I can show you what I mean by finding the positions. So first of all, we are seeing here the nasien part. The nasien was, as I said, when the forehead finishes, the nose starts, and between the eyes. So it's here, right? If you see from this side, as we had in the other photo, we have this part that goes in and then out. So this part is where we have to point as the nasien. Then we have inian, that it's this part, right? If we go a bit to this side, we see this part that goes a bit inward, you see? When you touch by finger, it's always easier to find this because you feel this bump and then it goes inside, and then immediately after we have a part that goes a bit more inside. So it's here. Okay, and then we have the preauricular points here or here. You can see what is the easiest for you. I prefer here because I'm used to touch this part of the head and connect it to this part of the ear, so it's really personal. So you need to try and see what works better for you. If you see from front, you put one finger here, one finger here, and try to find the position in the middle like this. Okay, so here will be CZ, correct? If you see from this side, we have Nasion here, Indian here, find the 50%, and here, and do the same. This position will be CZ. This is the middle of the head. So we have 50% here, 50% here, and here the same. Okay, so this is the point that we need to find to help us to locate the rest of the electrodes. This is my magic point, and I teach to all my students. We always follow here because it's the easiest to find, and then help us to find the rest. With this map, with this angle, I can explain you what are the most important lobes. I don't want to call them brain lobe actually, because some of them are not brain lobes, but there are points that we use in neurofeedback or in EEG recording to find positions, but keep in mind not all of them are brain lobes. Okay, the first two are prefrontal and frontal lobes. So we know that here almost forehead, we have the prefrontal, so we call it FP, and then we have frontal lobe, position of the frontals electrodes, we call it F. Then we have central. This central is not a lobe, we don't have a central lobe. This is how we just find the position and the electrodes here. Then we have parietal lobe, which is a lobe and is back after the central one, closer to the Indian part. And then we have occipital. And then we have temporal lobes that are showing the temporal parts of the head close to the ears, right? And these two are shown as with T starting with temporal. Okay, so we have prefrontal, frontal, central, parietal, occipital, and temporal lobes or positions. Now, this is something you need to learn pretty well to find the locations of the electrodes. First, we need to define the area of the brain, and then we go more precise, finding position of each electrode. We can divide the head into hemisphere, head or the brain into hemisphere, left and right. And as you can see here, all the electrodes from the left hemisphere are labeled with odd numbers, and all the ones on the right side of the brain are called and labeled with even numbers. So just checking the electrodes numbers, we can understand which side of the head they should be positioned. And then we have the Z. Z is in the middle, of course. Z coming as 0, that is not on left nor right, it's on midline basically. Now, considering the information of the last slide and this slide together, we will have something like this that will help us find the position of each electrode. Okay, so we have the positions here: Nasion, Indian, Preauricular points, and 10-20. Remember, the 10 is the 10% away from these points. Okay, the points from Preauricular points, Nasion points, and Indian point, and then we have a circle. This shows the 10% away from our main points. Okay, and then this is, we already know the connections between these two that gives us this middle of the head, which is CZ, right? And if we go from C towards Nasion, we have FZ, backward, PZ, right? Remember, odd numbers, even numbers. We have F3 and F4 here. Of course, we have F1 and F2 also, but we are talking about 19 channels. So these are the chosen electrodes, let's say, that we use in neurofeedback field. Okay, don't forget that we have all the other numbers when we go to 32 or 64 channels or even more. But what we need is 19 channels. So these are the chosen ones, actually. Okay, then we have F3 and F4. Then we have C3 and C4 and P3 and P4. If you have noticed, we have 333 FCB, 444 FCP, correct? A bit outward center, we have F7 and F8, and temporal T3, T4, T5, T6, and FE1, FP2, O1, O2. So I'm not going to explain how to find each location because I recorded a video while I was having a workshop in the clinic with a real human, and I'm gonna show you in a bit. It's easier to understand how to find each location, but for you to have an idea, all of these positions are coming from this 10-20 value. So here is 10% from here to here. And then all the positions you find here all divided 10 or 20% of the whole distance. Something that you need to see to have a better notion of how they are located is that if you see here, we have a position like a cross, right? And then the circle. And then the ones inside are a bit like this shape, right? Because when you go on the head is not that precise circle, and here is like this. Sorry, I'm learning this new toy I bought. I still didn't master how to draw with it, but it's pretty cool actually. Then we have the reference electrodes. A1 and A2 are usually in the devices or softwares are called as the references. In neurofeedback field, most of the time we use linked ear references, especially when we do Z-score training or brain mapping. Only in some amplitude training that we don't need to put on the ear, and we can use one of these locations as reference. And I put the ground electrode here because the ground electrode should exist in the recording, but doesn't matter where. You can use any of these positions if you are doing a neurofeedback training, normal neurofeedback training that is not 19 channel. If it's 19 channel, you can put anywhere, any empty place you can have. This is really optional. Between therapists is different, between heads or shapes of the head is different. So I put it in the side. All right, I think we know enough about the positions of the electrodes, and now we are ready to watch the video of the workshop that I recorded for you. But before we go there, I would like to mention the materials needed for the neurofeedback training. Here I'm going to just briefly mention them and explain what you're going to see in the video so you have an idea. But if you're interested to learn more, you can check my online course. I leave the link in the description below. Anyhow, if you have more specific questions, you can ask me in the comments or you can email me and I'm happy to help. So the most important furniture that we need is a comfortable chair that the patient can sit and relax the body. This chair should have a place to keep the neck and the head and the arms and the legs. Only like this we are sure that we are not recording any muscle activities. Then we have the electrodes, can be in caps, can be in different types of electrodes, but I'm showing you here what we use in the clinic, which are single electrodes, and they called cup electrodes because they look like a cup, right? They have different materials. We use the gold one, okay? And then we have the amplifier that these electrodes will be connected to the right position in the device or from here, depending on your system, and amplifies the information and send it to the computer Then we have the new prep or alcohol to clean the head, the scalp. Depends on the person, of the type of the head or the type of the hair they have. We can choose alcohol or new prep. We need both sometimes. And we need 1020 paste for this type of electrodes. Okay, so this conductive material can be different depending on the type of electrode you are using. And this is the amount of the paste we need to put on the electrode. I'm showing you so you have an idea from close up, because in the video you might not be able to see. And then we have cotton to put on top of the electrodes to make them a bit more secure. Now let's go to our workshop video and see how to find each of these positions in real head, in real human. Here, as I mentioned, we are using single electrodes. We are showing you the 19-channel recording for EEG purposes, for brain mapping purposes. But the concept is the same. So if you're doing 4 channels or 1 channel training, it's the same. You just need to find the position you want to train. Here is a workshop, so you're going to see more people in the room. My technician is performing and I'm going to guide you with finding the positions. Now, this is a good photo to start to see how to find the CZ. Here you see that she is trying to find CZ. Here is nascent point, you see? So going like this, it should be in this line. She is using this finger to find the preauricular point, and then coming up using this finger to match the other finger, finding where CZ is. So you put one finger here of your one hand, the other hand is the other side, and you try to get to the middle, considering where is the nascent point and the inion point from the other side. Here you also see that she's holding a swab, and here on her hand she's having a bit of product. This product is new prep, is to clean the head. Now we're gonna watch the movie and see how she's cleaning and putting the electrodes. So she found it, she cleans, takes one electrode, put it in the device so she doesn't do the mistake at the end. So we put one by one to make less confusion. A bit of 1020, and we put and we press a bit. Then we put a bit of cotton just to hold the location in the best place. That was CZ. Now she's finding the FZ. From CZ to nascent point, which is here, we have 50% of the head. Here we can divide it to, we can take out 20% and it will be somewhere around here. We put 1020 paste on the electrodes, that can be enough, and put it there. Press a bit, you see that there is a bit of 1020 coming out of the electrode from top. That is okay, that shows that it's the gap between the electrode is full. And now in the same position from FZ to CZ, we count and we go backward and we find PZ. So the distance between CZ and FZ and PZ should be kind of the same. You put the 1020 paste, press, and put a bit of cotton. You press a bit, not much, to secure the position of the electrodes. Now we have found CZ, FZ, and PZ. I recommend you that you always start with CZ. Either CZ will be the electrodes that you're training, so it will be the active electrode. If not, you can use it as the ground electrode. We in the clinic, we find these 3 first in 19 channel, and then we go to the temporal lobe to find the temporal region. And why is that? Because, as I explained, how we could find the FZ considering the Bayesian to CZ. Here also we can consider preauricular and CZ, and then divide here into 10% and then 20 and 20. So let me show you here with my pointer. So if you consider a line like this from CZ to preauricular, we have to divide here by 20%, 20%, and 10%. Okay? And to find the 10% is always easier. So we don't need to be super precise with the position of 10% or 20% because in Neurofeedback we are not that picky. But we can use our finger to have a notion of the division. So here she's, because it's an adult, she's putting her finger. Be careful with kids, it's different. But you have to imagine that you're taking out 10% distance from the ear towards the CZ. And like this, you find the temporal positions. So here we are putting the electrodes for T4. Okay, so we clean again and put the electrodes, put 1020 on the electrode and press a bit while she's pressing. If you have noticed, she's always holding the head with the other hand. This gives a comfort to the client that they don't need to get stiff and control their neck all the time. So you help them to feel comfortable while you hold the head when you press. If you imagine a point from CZ to T4, we have to divide this into half to find the other 20%. So here is 20, remember? So here is 20, 20, 10%. So to find this 20, from here to here, we can divide in two and find the position of C4. You see how she is putting the hairs aside. We always want to get to the head, to the skin. A bit of new prep to clean, and then take the electrode, put a bit of paste, press, and put a bit of cotton. So after finding T4 and C4, we go to start from FE1 and FE2 actually to find the frontal lobes better. So FE1 and FE2 are a bit tricky because they will get a lot of artifacts, blinks, and eye movement artifact. That's why Barbara, my technician, is putting a bit higher because we want to avoid that while we don't want to get too far. But I ask her to put it a bit lower so you know the right position. So with kids, we put in this position that we're going to put today, and you're going to see and try with that place. After, if you think there's a lot of artifacts and you can't train, you can put the electrodes a bit higher, only a bit. So I'm going to pause to show you. We like to put right above the pupil when the person is looking forward, and that will be FP1 and FP2. Is somewhere in the middle of the forehead, okay? But again, as I said, we can move it a bit more for above if we see a lot of artifacts and we cannot get a good recording, okay? Finding FP2 help us to find F8. So here she's showing the position of F8. We are talking about how to find it. This should be 20% away from FP2, but we have to be careful not to be tricked by the hair of the person because we have different types of foreheads, different types of hair, so we really can't guess the position with the hair, but we can use our finger again, checking the eye, the position of the eye and eyebrow, and putting the finger how she was putting to find the right position. F8 is a bit tricky also because we have a lot of artifacts in this position, so we might go a bit more backward if needed, but we always need to be careful not to get close to the other electrodes and change the ratio. So now we have F8 also. To find F3, we can use the position of FP2 and FZ. So we have to go right above FP2, and all of these ratios between these three should be around 20% of the position of the rest of the head, like we explained, but be careful not to get close to C4 that much. So when we find, let me put it on the pause again, this position should be the same as this also, and to C4 also. Okay, so it will be somewhere around here to have a right proportion or ratio between other positions. Okay. As always, we clean, we put 1020 paste, and we put a bit of cotton to secure it. And as you can see, every electrode that we put on the scalp of the client, we put on the device also, and it's organized, and we don't do mistakes. So now, after we find the portion between F4 and C4, and we go towards the parietal. So this is also, let me stop again. This is also the same proportion between the electrodes here and here and here and here and here should be all the same distance between each other. So if you keep that in mind, it's really easier to find the right ratio between the distance of the electrodes, because theoretically it's easy to talk, but every head has a different shape or different size. Hairs sometimes doesn't help the way they grow. So keep in mind, each electrode that you put, you should always check with the electrodes around them. You have to have the big picture when you go forward, putting more and more electrodes to find to have the same distance between all of the electrodes, and that's the most important factor in brain mapping. Now again, we do the same. I pause again to show you. Have the same size from F8 to T4 to here, and now again we go backward to find T6. Okay, so this T6 should have also the same distance between our P4. You should have some delicacy in the way you touch the patient, to touch the hair, and to learn to ignore the hair and find a way to get to the skin. So as you can see, Barbara has really nice and delicate movements in her fingers, making it really easy to move around on the head and put away the hair to find the right position. So now we did most of the right hemisphere, as you can see in the device as well. We are keeping the O1 and O2, the occipital one, for the end, because it's a tricky position and we don't want the electrode to touch the chair and get loose. So now we go to the other side. We start from T3 again, because that's how we can find the 10% distance between the ear towards the CZ. If you remember, you can use your finger here to find the position, but this is good to stop to show also. Okay, same story here from CZ to preauricular point, and we have to find 10% from here, 20 to get here. So this will be T3, and from here to here will be in half, and this will be C3. Okay, so if you go a bit above the head, like putting your position here to watch the head from above, so you find the CZ from above, you can use C3, you can use C4 to find the position of C3. So you always, as I said, need to see the direction and the distance between the electrodes, and that will make it easier for you to understand where the position is. Now, like the other hemisphere, we start with FP1 above the eye, as I explained. Check the other FP2 to be sure they are precisely in the right position. Let me stop again to show you. Okay, so it is a good time that we go to front of the patient to find out exactly the positions. You see, this is a really nice positioning. So it's exactly above the eye, and then FZ here, all the same distance between each other. Like this, we check the electrodes from the frontal lobes, FE1, FP2, FZ. We have confidence that we put in the right position, so we can go back and move on with the other electrodes. Here also we have to consider FP1 to find F3, because F3 is exactly in the same direction, in the same line if we come from FP1 towards the back of the head, but we need to keep the right distance between FP1, F3, and FZ, and of course C3 that is behind. Now that we have F3, we can find the position of P3, that is in the same line that starts from FE1. So watching from above, we keep going backward, but keeping the same distance and same ratio between the electrodes. So keeping it the distance between F3 and C3, considering the position of CZ and PZ. If you see here now, it shows really precise positions between each other. You see, here should be PZ. So the distance are all the same. Missing F7. If you are watching from up, as you saw in a bit, you can use the position of 8 that you found to find the F7 easier. It should be exactly in the same position on the other side. One finger away from the eye towards the back of the head, but we can always find the position easier looking at FZ and F3 and find the F7 that is in the same line. We have F7, T3. We can find T5, which is in the same direction, same line towards the back. To find T5, we should check T3, P3, and PZ. To find O1 and O2, as I said, we need to touch the head to find the part that goes more inside. If I pause, we can see how she's positioning the O1, O2. This is PZ, right? Because the person is looking downward, don't forget that. So this is, when this is PZ, CZ, this is P3, P4, and the position again should be something like this. So this will be the O1 and O2. And the Indian point should be down there, down here. The more we go towards the back of the head, the harder it is to find the position, cleaning the region and put the electrode. It's because of the shape of the head, our position that is above the client while they're sitting, and also the amount of hair that is covering that region. So it's really important to practice more to find the position of the back, parietal and occipital more. We need to rely on our sense of touch more than the vision because it's really hard to see it. So practice to learn the touch of the shape of the head, of the parts that goes more outward, inward, so you learn how to find that place is easier. It doesn't matter which one we find first, or one or two is the same, but when we find it, we can use it as a reference to find the other one. So it says, again, it should be in the same line and the same position, but only on the other side of the head. Here we found O2 first, and as you could see, Barbara was showing with the fingers, considering the position and the distance between O2 to PZ, was trying to realize and imagine another one on the other side, and like that we find the O1 easier and more precise. Okay, so now we put all the 19 channel active electrodes that we need. We have to put an electrode that can represent the ground. It can be between FZ, CZ, or between CZ, PZ, or where she's pointing. It really doesn't matter where to put the electrode, but I prefer to put it more behind towards the parietal, because we need to put the electrode in a place that does not get any muscle artifact, blink, or eye movement artifact. So between CZ and PZ is the best place to put, because we already know that here is the safest, let's say, to have the ground. Now missing two reference electrodes. So the reference electrodes should be on a place that does not record any brain activity. Can be in mastoids, on the bone that we have below the ear where she was pointing, or on the earlobe. It's better to use a mastoid for people that are really sensitive to their ears and earlobes. People with severe anxiety or autism sometimes react when we want to touch their earlobe. So in that cases, we go to mastoids, but we usually use the earlobes because it's easier and simpler to clean and put the electrodes. So we do a bit different here in the clinic. Usually there is a specific ear electrodes that we need to buy separately, but we use the same single cup electrodes, and we use a plastic clip that we use to secure it on the earlobe. I love to do it this way. I tried many different ways, and this is the best because first of all, we are using the same groups of electrodes, buying from the same company and same packaging. So like this, we are sure that there is no conductivity differences between the electrodes. And ear electrodes are usually more sensitive, they break easier, and they are more expensive. So like this, it's safer and cheaper. Keep in mind that in both neurofeedback training and EEG recording, the most important electrodes are the references and the ground electrodes, because all the other active electrodes are compared to the recording of these three. And therefore, for us to have a trustable data, we need to be sure that we have a good recording from these areas. So be sure that you put the ground electrodes in a position that does not record muscle artifact. And for the ear electrodes that are a bit trickier, be sure that they're not touching the earrings or their wires are not touching the hair or the neck or the shoulder, and they're not making artifacts. Alright guys, so that's all for this video. I hope you learned something new today. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I will make more videos related to neurofeedback training. And if you have any questions, any doubts, write in the comments and I will answer you. See you soon.